guys, and welcome to episode 5 of my knitting podcast. Today is going to be a bonus episode. I wasn't sure if I was going to film it, so I said that I would be announcing the winner around New Year's. So the winner of the giveaway that I did in the last episode, to say thank you for 1,000 of you subscribing to my channel already. But yeah, I will be drawing that in the next episode. I'm actually planning on shooting this episode today. Today is 2 days before Christmas, and I'm planning on uploading a day before Christmas and then shooting another episode around New Year's and also uploading it and announcing the winner of the episode, the winner of the giveaway. But yeah, I wanted to do something besides the regularly scheduled program that we're doing on here. So the podcast format. I wanted to do a Q&A, and I told you guys to send in some comments or questions in the comments, or to send them in via Instagram. And I actually received quite a lot of questions, and I wasn't sure if that would be the case, because I don't know, sometimes it makes you feel kind of like an imposter coming in here, and yeah, I just wasn't sure if anyone had any questions. But some of you did, and I'm gladly here to answer them today. And also I thought it would be nice to speak about everything that I've knitted in 2022, which, to be fair, this has only been the year where I actually fell in love with knitting. Like I said in my first episode, I started around 2 years ago. I started knitting around 2 years ago. But only within the last, 6 months has my knitting mojo really taken up or kicked up a notch. Yeah, I've also already wrapped some of the gift knits that I've done, so I can't show you all of them, but I just wanted to talk through all of the projects that I did this year, and then maybe wrap up with what I liked knitting on the most, and the most important part, what I'm planning on knitting next year. I'm actually so excited to finish some of the projects that I'm currently working on, and start some of the new plans and cast on some of the new things that I want to work on. I will be talking about my works in progresses next week. There are 2 things that you haven't seen with the things that I'm showing you that I've knitted this year. So this will be a little preview of next episode. But yeah, that was the plan. I hope it works out. I hope it's not too long of a video. I need to take a sip of my coffee. I have everything written down again, and I wanted to thank some of you guys who reminded me that 400 meters per 100 grams isn't indeed DK, but fingering or sock yarn weight. So that is so helpful if I'm saying something that isn't correct, which can happen if you're speaking for 50 minutes to a camera. There is a slight possibility that you will be making mistakes. So thank you for correcting that. I was talking about the Bloom yarn, this very beautiful sock yarn that I got on Etsy, and I said that it had 400 meters on 100 grams, and I confused it. So thank you for reminding me. I will never forget that now, which is so nice when a few people tell you something. It just sticks to your brain. So that is nice. Yeah, and I really enjoyed reading all of your comments on the last video. It actually made me so giddy and joyful for Christmas as well, because it's been quite hard to get in the Christmas mood and Christmas pre-Christmas spirit with work, and it not being snowy here. We only had a few days of very little snow, and then now it's just cold and been raining. And yeah, so since not being a child anymore, I find it quite hard to get into the Christmas spirit around Christmas, but the beautiful tree we have really helps. And we actually got all of the ornaments now and the lights, like you can see, And yeah, I'm rambling. I'm going off on a tangent now. So let's start with the Q&A. Some of you guys were wondering, so I'll start with one personal question that I got. They were actually two, but I can combine them. And then we will talk about knitting related questions. I wasn't sure which way it would go, but I'm so happy that some of you had some questions, and I'm so happy to answer them. So yeah, the first question was, some of you guys were wondering what I'm studying, or rather what my PhD is about, and my doctoral thesis. So our project is on women in the early film industry, and how digital tools and data visualizations can or might be helpful for making them visible again, because it's not just women in the film industry now that are marginalized. Women have always been put into footnotes and ignored and rendered invisible or unimportant, even from the very beginning of cinema, even though they already worked there in various positions and roles, which is something that has only been found out a few decades ago and has now been subject to a lot of very interesting research projects. And our project tries to combine this feminist film historiography with ideas from the digital humanities. So that's kind of it. And like I said, I'm writing my doctoral thesis in this field. So the first knitting question was, where do you buy your yarn or wool? She said. So I usually buy from anthrazit, which is an online shop in Germany. I also like Wollen Berlin, which is also an online shop, but they also have a store in Berlin, which yeah, you can tell by the name. And I link both in the show notes. These are the online shops that I like the most, but there are a few others that are also completely fine. And I sometimes buy straight from the dyer. So with Olivia and Oliver fibers, for example, I buy it straight from her website. So the next question was, what inspires you? So I would say my friends inspire me hugely, and knitting YouTube and knitting Instagram. I would say the knitting YouTube, knitting Instagram bubble are so inspiring. I mean, obviously, if new patterns are coming out, they can be inspiring, but also what people are working on, what the YouTubers I like to watch are working on. Maybe I'm talking to them, maybe I'm talking to you guys. If you're telling me what you're working on, that can be inspiring as well. So the next question is a question that I actually get quite a lot, and I don't really think that I have a huge authority to speak about this, but so the question is, how do I best learn how to knit? Do you have any resources? So for me, the best way to learn how to knit was being taught by a friend, and then being taught in another way by another friend. So they both gave me their best insight in how to knit. I started knitting actually on like one of those squares, which I then actually gifted to my mother-in-law 2 years ago for Christmas. And it actually looked like my sweater number 18. So it had kind of a funny structure and pattern like that, but it wasn't, it was by accident. So I just mixed up purls and its knit stitches because I didn't know the difference then. And that's how I learned. Like, I do learn by doing quite a lot. I'm quite a, visual and autodidactic. Is that how you actually say it? Learner. I think it's so nice if people learn how to knit from their relatives, maybe your grandma. For me, it didn't work out that way. If that's not an option, if you don't have any friends or relatives around who could teach you, I would say get yourself a simple knit pattern, maybe a hat. I started knitting hats, and a relatively simple sweater as well, and stick on some YouTube. So I watched so many YouTube tutorials. I think if you know how to cast on, like a simple cast on, some knits and purls, and then cast off, you could do something like a cloth or like a, yeah, I mean, a hat should be easy enough. Just search for any instructions that you're not sure about, search for the abbreviations. So if you don't know something, it should be, most things are explained in the knitting patterns, or there are also some knitting magazines that explain those abbreviations to you. And then just try it out. Just don't be afraid to make any mistakes. You will probably, and that's okay. To the next question, which is my favorite knitting project I've made so far, or another one of you guys asked what was your favorite project so far. So I just combined the two. I thought they were basically the same question, and this is actually a tough one because I honestly love everything I've knitted so far. I just have to see, oh, I moved on too far, so I have to knit back. I'm doing decreases on my arm right now, and I think I've knitted too far. Yeah. So maybe my sweater number 18, which I showed you the sleeve of just a minute ago, because I enjoyed knitting the pattern quite a lot. It wasn't difficult. It just knits and purls. Just the way in which they're combined makes the pattern. So it was really easy. This was actually also the first sweater that didn't take me like half a year to finish. And I was able, because I had already knitted 2 other sweaters, I was able to actually help myself with quite a lot of the things that went wrong or I wasn't sure about. Which with the other sweaters I did before, I always had to wait before my friend was able to text me back and tell me how to do something. So if I had any questions, I had to wait for my friend to answer them, or yeah, look it up on the internet, and then I was getting frustrated quite a lot. Now I think my zipper sweater, which I'm also working on, I just love the yarn. It's so fluffy, I love it. I can't wait to have it in my wardrobe and wear it. So the next question was favorite and least favorite knitting technique. I don't love Italian cast on. When it like gets all twisty, I think that's annoying. I don't love binding off. It just takes such a long time. I do love the Italian bind off, but I don't particularly, if you have like such a long tail, because I always try to have enough of the tail, and then it's always too much. But yeah, you have to like fiddle it through for like such a long time, and with a sweater like this actually takes quite a long time. But yeah, it's such a nice, a very nice, very stretchy bind off. And I don't like picking up stitches. I think picking up stitches is the worst. I just don't love it, but I do love some stockinette in the round. I actually like German short rows. Yeah. And I think I like raglan increases. Actually, the zipper sweater has been the first raglan construction that I did. So the next question was any gift ideas for knitters and what to knit as a gift, which I took as a 2-part question kind of. So obviously if you know what someone wants to knit, you could always give them yarn, but that's not easy all the time if you're not very familiar with the project and don't know their preferred sizing or something like that. Gifting yarn can be quite difficult. I think it's also nice to gift tools. So something like a tape measure, a barber cord or some barber cords, a project bag, or even needles if you know what they which needles they would like to receive. Maybe a mood case, which is something that I asked for this Christmas. Maybe a nice pair of scissors. Yeah, something like that. So that could be a great idea for a gift for a knitter. And then what to knit as a gift, which is, I think, the second part of the question. So I would say when it comes to gift knitting, a scrappy project or just a small project would be ideal to start out with. I think mittens would be very nice. I think I'm in my Sophie scarf era. So obviously I've knitted 3 Sophie scarves to give to family this year. And yeah, so I think it's a perfect project to gift. Socks would also be a nice gift present, especially DK weight socks can be such a quick and easy project to gift to someone. I forgot to decrease again. I can't speak and decrease. I can speak and knit, I can think and knit, but I can't think and speak and decrease. And Laura from Penrose Knits, in her Vlogmases, she's been knitting penny gloves by Petite Knit for all of her son's teachers, which I thought was such a nice idea. So if you're quite a fast knitter already, you could do a penny glove in like a few days. Should be fine. I knit my one of my 2 mittens that I will be showing you. They're fingerless mittens. I knitted one of them in a day, which it's possible depending on the gauge. I think fingering weight would take a bit longer, but I think I did something DK. I think it would be DK weight, but yeah. So mittens would also be a nice idea. And I will link Laura's channel down below as well. So the next question was sweater patterns for novices. So people that have just started out knitting. I would say firstly on the Petite Knit website, for example, you can search by pattern, and you can search by level of difficulty when you're going through the pattern. So you could choose a beginner friendly pattern on there. You guys know that I like knitting her patterns, and that would be a great way to start. But also when it comes to sweaters, I would choose a raglan sweater probably. I didn't do it. I started out with the more difficult techniques, and then now only came to knitting raglan sweaters. But so I did short rows and just knitting the back panel, and then picking up stitches for the front, and then doing short rows again, and then picking up stitches for the collar. But now that I've done it a few times, I don't actually think it's that difficult. So I would say obviously the novice sweater by Petite Knit is for novices, but also the sweater number 23 that I'm wearing wasn't very difficult. And yeah, so my friend, I've told you about her, Lydia, she's bringing out her Rhabarber sweater in the next year, and that will also be beginner friendly. So you can have a look on her Instagram maybe if you want to try out a beginner friendly pattern. That would be an option. Yeah, I'm also a believer in learning by doing. So it doesn't really matter if you're making mistakes with yarn. You can always unravel, frog it, knit back. There are so many options. So you can't really fail, I think. Next question was, do you also find it difficult to find the right shade when ordering wool online? And do you have any tips? So I enjoy visiting yarn stores. Obviously that's not always an option, but I like touching the yarn and I like looking at the yarn. And I haven't really had any difficulties with ordering the yarn, because mostly I'm fine with some, if the color is like slightly off, I don't really mind. So I didn't have any major issues with that before, but I'm also trying to find the project and see what kind of yarn people used to knit the pattern on Ravelry or Instagram. I think Ravelry in particular is really great for that, because you can just search through the projects that people have knit up and then see what yarn they used, and if you like the picture, if you like how the drape is, how the fit is, how thick or thin the project looks, how the shaping is. And I think if you're looking through project patterns, they can look so different depending on what yarn was used to knit it. So I always go through Ravelry, and I always think I can't pronounce that word, but I like the website. I got an account. I haven't uploaded anything yet, but yeah, that would be my suggestion for you. So the next question is also not such an easy one. It's what's the best way to swap yarns? How do you go about choosing wool for a new project? That is actually relating quite nicely to the last question. I would say it's still not like easy peasy for me to be swapping out yarn. I think it's definitely a journey and learning by doing. Again, I'm sorry that is like the generic answer for all of your questions today, but a good starting point would be to see what the recommended yarn is and what kind of meterage that has. I'm going to link a website down below actually, which has quite of a nice overview of all of the different yarns. I would look at the recommended yarn and gauge, and then I would see if there is a yarn that maybe fits more of what you're looking for, or you could combine two different kinds of yarn to create another yarn thickness. So I use the internet to research that. If you're maybe looking for an 8-ply DK weight, 250 meters per 100 grams, I think should be DK. You could also do 2 strands of a fingering weight yarn to create that DK weight. So before doing any experiments, I would probably ask a friend, ask the internet, and then see on Ravelry what other people use for the project. And I think that's a great resource to find out what people are using. And also watch knitting podcasts, because I get so many ideas from what other people are knitting, and then I already know what they use for a project. So I know that, for example, if I hold the cones that I got from Woolly Knit, if I hold them double, so if I hold 2 strands of that, I can create the perfect gauge for a frill sweater. And I learned that from Rebecca from the Kremke Knitting podcast. So just see whatever works best for you, but it's definitely a learning curve for me as well. The next question is, do you have a monthly knitting budget for buying wool, etc.? So I don't have a knitting budget at the moment. The last couple of months have been quite a splurge for me as well. But yeah, I'm working, I'm making my own money, and I'm choosing to spend it on yarn. I haven't spent a lot of money the first 1.5 years of knitting, because I only ever bought the yarn that I needed for the specific projects and then worked on them for months and months on end. So now the last couple of months I spent quite a bit of money, quite a lot of money actually, on yarn to build kind of a stash and be knitting all day long. But that was possible because obviously I'm working, I'm making my own money, and then I got some Christmas money from work as well. That is kind of like an extra payment from your from where I work at, from the university, and with that money I got myself some yarn. So no, I don't have a budget, and maybe I will in the future, but also in the next couple of months I'm not planning on spending any money on yarn, because now I have yarn for most of the projects that I'm planning on doing within the next couple of months. So yeah, I'm not on a yarn spending ban, because I know that doesn't work. I've seen so many people talk about it and it usually doesn't work. So your favorite fiber for knitting, and what's your favorite yarn? Those were 2 questions that I combined. So I don't know really. I love knitting for Olive, the silk mohair, and the merino, but I also like all of the BCGarn. I actually like all of the yarns that I've tried from them. So at the moment I'm knitting with Loch Lomond, which was gifted as part of the test knit, and I was gifted another yarn from them, but I've also bought like different yarns before. I did this collaboration with them and I liked all of them, so I think that is also, they got certified. So yeah, Knitting for Olive and BCGarn I think are some of my favorite brands for yarn. And when it comes to hand dyed, obviously the Olivia and Oliver fibers yarns. So the next question was, is there something you'd like to knit but you feel like you're not ready for? Yeah, I think like a very complex colorwork jumper I don't know if I could do it. I mean, I did stripes before, but like real color work with like 2+ colors and like throwing the one color and like holding the other color, and then I don't know. I don't feel ready for that yet, but I will probably in the future. And the next question, I had to laugh when I read that, was knitting room tour, question mark. Unfortunately, we only have a 1-bedroom apartment and I don't have a knitting room. I don't even have an office. I have a table in our bedroom where I work on, and I do have a real office in the university, but yeah, my home office is in our bedroom and I'm sitting in our living room right now. We don't have a huge apartment, but it's big enough for us. We have a lovely little garden and a terrace as well, so I'm not complaining, but I don't have a knitting room, unfortunately. I'm thinking about taking you through my knitting stash and how I keep my yarn. I think my boyfriend would probably argue that our living room is kind of a knitting room, because there are so many project bags around and baskets with yarn. But yeah, maybe I can show you how I stash my yarn in an upcoming video. But if you're interested in interior and how we live and about the apartment in general, I post about this a lot more on Instagram as well. I'm quite into interior decorating and making our flat feel like a home, so I upload quite a lot of interior pictures over there. Recommendations. So the next question was recommendations for podcasts and sources of knowledge about knitting and yarn. So for socks, I really would recommend watching the crazy sock ladies tutorials. They have taught me how to knit a sock, and in particular how to knit a sock on magic loop, for entertainment and general knitting knowledge, plus also some insights on how to knitwear design. I love to watch Laura from Penrose Knits. I already talked about her. Kika from Kutova Kika and Rebecca from the Kraya Knitting podcast. Already talked about her in most of my videos. Chelsea from the True Lane Knitting podcast. Bethany from Well Loved Knits. Florence, whose channel is called Handmade by Florence, and Inga from Knitting Traditions are the one that I enjoy watching the most at the moment. There are so many other great ones out there. These are just the ones that I watch whenever they upload. And I would also like to recommend to you some Instagram channels or profiles that I like to follow. I find them inspiring and helpful, and I love to follow those. So I will be linking those Instagram profiles that I like to follow in the description box as well. Next question is, what are your favorite scrappy projects? So I haven't done many scrappy projects. I think my first ever scraps project was the mittens I'm going to show you in a minute. And I did this Christmas decoration I showed you last time again, the mini sweater. I already wrapped that and put it under the tree, so I can't show you again, but yeah, things like that. I haven't, because I didn't have like a huge stash, always used up most of the yarn that I bought. I don't have so many scraps. So now I will be talking about all of the projects that I've knitted in this year, starting from the beginning, going in kind of a chronological order. I'm starting with this Marseille Sweater by Petite Knit. I knitted this in Semilla Grosso by BCGarn. It's a very heavy, very oversized, very nice sweater. I really like it. It hasn't pilled one bit. This is actually the first one I made this year, with a bit of help from my friend. She helped me finish the second sleeve when I was visiting her. But it's, yeah, I mean, there are a few little balls like right in the at the end of the arm, but nothing much. It held up quite well. That was my first sweater this year, and following that I did the sweater number 18. This is sweater number 18 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. You can see I used a mohair with this sweater, which I didn't use for the Marseille sweater. I had to change a few things about this sweater. Again, I told you about in my last episode. I had to lengthen the sleeve and had to do the collar again because it was too tight. And yeah, I knitted this with Semilla Pura by BCGarn. See how I used their yarn before quite a lot of times. And I used the Silky Kid by Kremke Silky Kid as well. All of these things are always linked in my YouTube description box. So if you have any, if you want to know anything about the yarn, it's mostly linked down there. The last sweater I did, so I did 3 sweaters, and I hope to be finishing 1 more sweater this year. But yeah, you saw that was my test knit, the Jones sweater by Gregoria Fibers. But yeah, this one I actually finished. It's the sweater number 23 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I knitted this in heavy merino by Knitting for Olive, just 1 strand. So it is pilling quite a bit, which would have probably not been the case had I used a mohair for this to hold it with. But I don't want each and every single one of my sweaters to have mohair in them. So I don't mind debobbling or depilling it once in a while. I actually quite like the act of depilling sweaters. So yeah, I don't mind that. Next, I'm going to talk about 2 hats that I knit. This is the Bayou Beanie by Witre design. I made this for my boyfriend for his birthday. It fits him really well. I really like it. Was a new design for me, this kind of knit to purl to ribbing, and I think it turned out well. I knitted this in Rauma Finu, I think it's called. It's usually all of these information are linked in the description box. How many times can I say that? Like, could you actually make a drinking game out of this? The next, so I'm breezing through this because I know I have already talked for such a long time, and I wanted to tell you guys about my knitting plans for the next year. This is the next hat that I made. I made it for myself. I knitted this with 1 strand of the Sandnes Sunday and 1 strand of the Tynn silk mohair. Next time I would probably use 2 strands again, because now that I've worn it for a couple of times, it's actually quite floppy, and I think with this construction, it's nicer if it has some sort of structure to it. But yeah, I like it. I wanted to have a red signally color hat. This is the Stockholm hat by Petite Knit, the pattern, and I mean, I knitted this a couple of times before. I would knit it again, but probably try out some other hat patterns before knitting one of those again. Now off to another couple of Petite Knit patterns. This is the Petite Knit Sophie shawl and Sophie scarf. I made these. I made 3 more of the Sophie scarf as presents, like I think I've said a million times before now. So I made this with a compatible cashmere by Knitting for Olive in the color Bark. I really like this. It's a little cross-out. And I made this with some leftover yarn Semilla Pura in the gray, light gray colorway. This is the same yarn that I used for my sweater number 18, although I used a kind of like caramel, like warm brown mohair with the sweater. So this is like a true gray color, whereas the sweater is leaning a bit more into like a warm brown grayish colorway. But yeah, I enjoyed knitting those. I'm currently knitting on another Sophie shawl, and I think for the moment I'm done with Sophie scarves. I've knitted so many of those now. I'm over it, and I have enough scarves at this point in time. So my next two projects are actually socks. I'm wearing one of them now, so I'll have to take off the sock of my foot. This is the first sock that I've done. These are vanilla socks. I've combined a few patterns. I hope they don't look too bad now that I've worn them. I've actually washed them twice. I think they're holding up quite well. I've combined a few patterns. I'm actually putting them on my feet again. I've combined a few patterns. I'm talking about that a bit more in my last video. You can watch that for reference. And I used the Hello Autumn colorway of the fingering sock yarn by Olivia and Oliver Fibers. And speaking of Olivia and Oliver Fibers, I did a DK sock set as well. These are the Antique Rose and Marigold colorway. I'm very proud of them actually. I did a 2x2 ribbing. I did a heel flap and gusset, I think it's called. With the first one I did, it's called, in German it's called Bumerang Ferse. And someone in the comments actually told me it's called German, it's short row heel. Now I might be wrong, but someone said something about that. It's short row heel, German short row. I think it's without the German. It's a short row heel, which was easy enough. But I didn't find the heel flap and gusset to be much more difficult. So I will be using this technique in the future as well, especially when I want to combine in the contrast color to the heel as well. With this, I only did the toes and the leg in the contrast color. But yeah, they were pretty easy to do. I really like them. I'm now a bit gutted that I have so much, well, not so much, but the other Olivia and Oliver Fibers yarn that I got, it's all fingering weight, and I only have one set of DK weight socks left, and I think I don't prefer it, but it's definitely easier. It goes by faster. And now that it's so cold and it's the winter time, I actually can use some thicker socks as well. So these were the second pair of socks that I did this year. And now onto the last thing that I did. I'm leaving out, like I said, the Christmas presents that I've already wrapped. Are these cute little mittens. They are called the Simple Mitts. So they are by Paula Strict. And they look like this. Again, I've used the Semilla Pura BCGarn to do this, and I held it with a strand of the compatible cashmere. Yeah, I was really proud of myself to be able to do them using DPNs, and I'm quite happy how they turned out. They are quite big on the top, so if I put them on, it would have been even better. So, like, they fit on the arm. I didn't do the twisted rib like the pattern suggested. I just mixed it up. I don't know why, but I have like 1 centimeter too much fabric here. Like it's not a problem. I can do anything with them. I drove the car yesterday actually wearing them, but if I had done some more decreases right around here, they would fit even better. Just something to keep in mind maybe for the next pair. And yeah, so this was the last thing that I finished, and now I will be talking about my plans for 2023. I will be trying to put in some pictures again of all the things that I'm talking about, because I think that has worked quite well to be able to show you what I'm talking about. So firstly, of course, I will be trying to finish all my whips. I hope to finish the Jones sweater this year, between Christmas and New Year's. I'm like halfway done with my first sleeve, so it should be doable. So yeah, that's the Jones sweater by Gregoria Fibers, which I'm test knitting. I would also like to get some more rows in on my zipper sweater by Petite Knit, but I'll probably finish that next year. I don't know how much time I'll be getting for knitting. I hope a lot. But I'm also hosting Christmas for my mom and brother, and then I'll be off to family and on the road quite a lot between the holidays. So yeah, I don't know how much knitting I'll be getting in. And then the Monday sweater, which you haven't seen yet, and I'll be talking about that in the next episode some more. I've only just done the collar, and now I'll have to pick up stitches to do the increases, the raglan increases. I'm really interested to see how this pattern is going. I love the yarn, and I can't wait to talk about it more, but yeah, I've just cast that on. And then some more small projects that I want to work on. I want to do a hot water bottle cover, and some more mittens, maybe some penny gloves, and some socks, some Christmas socks. I'll be casting them on Christmas Day. So now on to the things that I have planned and I do have the yarn for. So I'll first be doing the festival sweater by Petite Knit with this double Sunday and one of the two contrast colors by Olivia and Oliver Fibers. I don't know yet if I'm either going to use hot cocoa or pumpkin spice. This is what they look like. So I have yet to choose which way I'm going to combine the two. Maybe the one color that I won't be using out of the contrast colors will be a Sunday sock by Petite Knit. We'll see, I don't know yet, but I'm really looking forward to do a gauge swatch and also see which colors I want to combine. This will be a 2023 project. So the next thing I want to do is knit a black or very dark gray chestnut sweater by Petite Knit. There will be loads of Petite Knit patterns I will be talking about, but yeah, I'm okay with that. My videos are a bit Petite Knit heavy. But I will be using the Kremke Silky Baby Alpaca and the Kremke Silky Merino Cobweb super fine superwash, which will help the alpaca hold its shape. And I think I've said everything about that I wanted to say. The next thing will be sweater number 15 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I actually planned on doing something else with this, but now I will be going to actually try my first cabled project. So My Favorite Things Knitwear's sweater number 15 is a beautiful all over cabled, very modern looking sweater, and I will be using the Marzipan Knitting for Olive Merino and the solid baby silk lace solid in a white color, and this is what they look like. That's the next project I'm planning on doing. And again, another Petite Knit project, which will be my first drops project, will be the Moby sweater by Petite Knit in the Drops Merino Extra Fine and the Drops Kid Silk, and they look something like this, which will probably be the most difficult pattern that I try to knit up until now. So I'm very much looking forward to that. The next thing that I would like to try and make is a slip over. This has actually been something that I've planned on doing for quite a few months because I got gifted this fat mohair by a friend. At the beginning I actually thought that there was just a lot of yarn on this ball, but it's actually just a very, very thick mohair. So I wasn't sure what to make with it. I really like the color, but it's not something that I was planning or very much looking forward to work with, and I didn't know what to make of it and make with it. So a slip over, possibly the Wednesday slip over, would be something that I would like to try. I bought some Sandnes Sunday. I actually took off the ball band and knit up a gauge swatch with this, but in the gauge of the Wednesday sweater. So not the Wednesday slip over, which uses a smaller needle, which I wouldn't have been able to knit this up with in brioche stitch, which the sweater and the slip over are calling for the Wednesday range kind of. And yeah, so I don't know what to make of this fat mohair. I love the color. I would love to knit with it, especially because it was a gift from a friend. And so I don't have a full sweater quantity, but I'm thinking about what kind of slip over I could do with it. So this isn't a set plan. Maybe it'll change, but I'm thinking about doing a slip over with this. So the next project that I will be doing is a no-frill sweater, again by Petite Knit, and I'm copying Rebecca here by holding this cone, which is a merino wool cone by Woolly Knits in a beige nap color, double, and yeah, creating a no-frill sweater that way. Although I've seen that the no-frill sweater has kind of like a very open neckline, and I do prefer, or my favorite kind of neckline is a crew neckline. So maybe there is a raglan construction similar to the no-frill sweater out there with a tighter neckline, and maybe you can recommend that to me. So if you know anything about that, please do text me or write me a comment. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to use this. I think this is some of the nicest yarn, some of the most beautiful yarn that I own, and I'm very excited to use it. I would love to knit my first cardigan. I have no idea on what kind of pattern that I would like to use. I just think that this would be a really nice color for a cardigan. Would be perfect to wear some lighter color with it underneath, like a blouse or a t-shirt. So yeah, I'm thinking about doing a cardigan with this, but I don't have any particular pattern in mind. So if again you have any suggestions, any ideas on a fairly easy cardigan pattern, because I haven't knit a cardigan before, please drop me a comment. And of course, my last plan is to knit this Drops Alaska. The plan is to knit a corsabend sweater with this for my boyfriend. The corsabend sweater is by Stricke Café, and yeah, there's not much to say about that. Other than I hope I will be able to do the pattern, because now I'm struggling with the gauge swatch and I need to ask my friend who also did this for her husband if she maybe has some recommendations on how to knit this chart, because I haven't done many charts before. Yeah, and I reckon with the 3 sweaters that I'm currently working on and all of these plans, I will be good for quite some time. I mean, I will be doing some sock knitting as well. I won't be showing you the sock yarn. I will be doing an acquisitions part in the next video, because this is already so long, and I will be showing you them. And now some projects that I haven't made any concrete plans for, but some things that I would like to knit up in the next year would be, of course, the Rhabarber Sweater Pro by my friend Lydia in kind of a cinnamony color. I would like that because that color, I think, kind of reminds me of her, as well as connects us because we both love it. And I will be taking part in the test knit, which will be next year. So that is obviously a pretty concrete plan already, but I don't have the yarn yet. Another thing that I would love to knit is the structural loop sweater by Maya Klovdal. I don't know if I'm butchering her name, I'm sorry. It is in the original pattern, it's made with Önling garn as well. I might be as well butchering that name, but it's a yarn that I would like to try out. So the structure loop sweater is one of the nicest looking sweaters that I've come across on the internet, and it's just been on my knitting wish list for some time now, so I might be trying to knit that in the next year. A similar pattern, so it's not similar, but it's a similar thing. It's a beigey white sweater with a blue contrast, would be the Nord pullover by Hanne Rimmen. Again, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correctly, but that is also such a nice pattern, I think. So I will be choosing either of those two. And like I said, those are only things that I would like to knit. Before I do any of those things, I will be knitting the things that I have the yarn for. At least that's the plan. Now on to 3 sweaters that I have on my wish list, and I don't know which one of the 3 I'll be doing, but it'll probably be one of them. Not all of them at the same time. But I like the look of the Dartmoor sweater by Kadri, the No sweater by Stricke Café, and the Lento sweater by Leine magazine. So I don't know which one of them I'll be doing. I think the Lento is in a fingering weight, and the other 2 are more of like a DK weight. I'll be probably using the Ficolana Pernilla for the No sweater, and I've already looked up kind of like a very nice mossy green for that. So I have some more concrete plans for some of them, and for others not so much. But yeah, those were just like 3 patterns that really spoke to me and that I would maybe like to do in the future, but obviously not all of them. So when it comes to a smaller project, I would love to do some more gloves or mittens, like I said, maybe a few hats. The Hitchhiker Beanie by Spektakelstrik also looks very intriguing to me. Because it's like kind of a thick yarn. It has very nice stitch definition, and I like the look of that. And now on to my last plan for next year, and then I'll be finished, I promise. I'm also planning something super special and very exciting with Chelsea, who I've been talking about a bit, and who I've been talking to actually. And she's so nice, and I've asked her if she would like to do a yarn swap. So she is located in the US and I'm located in Europe. And so we could try out some yarns that we don't usually have easy access to. And because we have kind of a similar taste. And so I'm very excited to talk about that more in the next couple of episodes. I've already got a few things for her. I can't say any more because it should be a surprise. I'll be going on and knit a bit more. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas if you're celebrating. If not, I hope you have a great time anyway. And I will see you again on New Year's. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you in the next episode in a couple of days. Bye.